Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with our guest, but first let's visit with our podcast sponsors. We want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Learn more at hometownticketing.com. We also want to thank Violet Defense. Go to violetdefense.com for more information about this great product. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Once again, go to violetdefense.com for more information. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call them at 832-786-0302. Schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com and see what these fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they are on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen boards, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Variety is not to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments. Visit vitalsignswalloffame.com. or learn more and get started with your own digital Wall of Fame tribute. Give them a call at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. You won't be disappointed. We also want to thank Huddle. At Huddle, we power sports. More than 180,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, are using Huddle to elevate the performance of their teams and their athletes using video and analytics. Huddle is the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus, analytics, and a whole lot more. Huddle is built for every level of play, from the club and the youth levels up through high school, college, and even professional teams are using Huddle to improve the performance of their teams. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and of course, the coaches of the college and university teams that you're trying to get your kids recruited to. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to their website at huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for being the named sponsor of the Athletic Director's Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic program. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also gives you access to the 95% of the players and the parents who really love your program, and it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466 or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. If you've never used an online survey for your athletic department, you really need to check them out. Let the professionals at Athletic Surveys take your athletic program from good to great. Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going out to the great Pacific Northwest in the state of Washington, where I went to high school 100 years ago. We're going to be visiting with John Wiley. John is a certified master athletic administrator, and he's the athletic director at the Overlake School in Redmond, Washington. John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jake.
And I know you and I have been talking for quite a while since we connected on LinkedIn. Very excited to have you on the show. So let's jump right in. Great. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and the path that's brought you now to Overlake School in Redmond.
Okay. I was born and raised in Seattle, and the youngest of five, a sports obsessed kid, just like so many ADs probably. My old man always wondered why I knew the National League batting leaders in order, yet I didn't seem to have my math homework done. But I was born here. I went to school, went to high school actually where I work. One of those people who, if you had asked me in high school, would you ever come back to your school? I would have said, absolutely not. Why would I come back? Though I appreciate my experience, I felt like that was in my rearview mirror. I went to college at Denison University in Granville, Ohio. So a shout out to all the Buckeyes out there, where I was one of those. I was a D3 school. I got called by the basketball coach to be told I was admitted, and I looked forward to playing basketball there. And then in fall baseball, I broke my foot. So that was the end of my college athletic career. And I think it was probably a good thing, because I looked around campus and I saw a lot of guys who were bigger and better than I was that could shoot it just as far, just as well. But I did become the next best thing, and probably a really good training ground for athletic directors. I was the intramural chairman for 3 years of my fraternity. So that got me the grassroots interest in organizing sports, and I played everything I could. About 9 days after I graduated from college with a history degree, I was working in the NBA. I worked for the Seattle Supersonics, our beloved franchise, which moved on to Oklahoma City with Kevin Durant, unfortunately. But no, I worked for them for a few years. It was great for a kid like me. It was great experience on their business side. And then I started coaching. I was a volunteer coach nearby at Parks and Recs, and I got contacted by my old high school asking if I'd be interested in coaching JV basketball. So that was my path to coaching. Did it for a few years. Then I was asked if I'd think about the varsity job. Did that for a couple of years, and the outgoing AD said, "You know what? I think you'd be good at this." And so I was crazy enough to think I would be, and I had absolutely no understanding of what an athletic director did, really. But I jumped into it with both feet. So that was my path to being an AD. It probably wouldn't happen if it weren't for being at my old high school, but it was an opportunity, and it was great timing. I was very lucky. Our school is about a mile from the Microsoft campus. And suddenly, it's a private school, and suddenly there was a lot of interest in our school. And so I kind of caught it at the right time with fields and courts and new facilities being built, 77-acre campus. I couldn't ask for more. So.
Wow, that's so cool to hear. I've actually been involved in a couple of different startups, so I know some of the challenges as well as the excitement of being involved with that. Talk a little bit about that transition from, the coaching aspect to, now that more global perspective of an AD. What were some of the things that stuck out of those, let's say, transitional years for you?
Well, I think day one, when I realized that I was pretty much over my skis and didn't understand what was going on, I somehow got a hold of a guy named Gary Snyder. And Gary Snyder is a local legend around here. He was the athletic director at Mercer Island High School. He has a very famous son. Quinn Snyder is the head coach of the Utah Jazz. Before that, he played at Duke. So this is a family that has athletics all over. And Gary was a wonderful AD at Mercer Island, and somehow I coaxed him into coming down, give me a couple hours of his time, and he walked into my office, which was about as big as a shoebox, and he proceeded to speak a language I didn't even understand at the time. I think that transition of hey, have your athletic secretary send the purchase order to this. There were no athletic secretaries. There were no purchase orders. It was just me trying to figure out how to do the job. I thanked him for his time. I figured I had no prayer in his mind of being able to do the job. And here I am 27 years later. So I think the big thing for me was reaching out to people, whether they're ADs in the league or basketball coaches who became athletic directors. And they really kind of took me under their wing. From everything from how to deal with referee associations to the right approach of scheduling games and all these things that I thought I knew as a head coach, but I really didn't have a clue as far as the organization standpoint. So I think that was really big. I had a lot of people, I think, put me on the right track, and I'm very thankful for that.
Very cool. I appreciate you sharing that stuff. And again, it just brings back those memories for me starting out. For our listeners, we are visiting with John Wiley. He's a certified master athletic administrator. He's the director of athletics at the Overlake School in, in Redmond, Washington. We're going to be back with some more, but we're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. Please stay with us. We want to thank Huddle for their support of the Educational AD podcast. At Huddle, we power sports. More than 180,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, are using Huddle to elevate the performance of their teams and their athletes using video and analytics. Huddle is the complete platform for performance. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus, analytics, and a whole lot more. Huddle is also built for every level. If you coach a college or a club or a youth team, Huddle can help you out. Of course, they work for high schools and colleges, and even the professional teams are using Huddle to help improve the performance of their athletes. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and of course, the college and university coaches that you're trying to get your kids recruited to. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and how your school can become a Huddle school, reach out to their professionals at huddle.com. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We're back visiting with John Wiley, Certified Master Athletic Administrator from the Overlake School in Washington. And for our listeners, we're recording this on November 23rd, so you're going to be hearing it in a pretty timely manner. John, in our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and particularly mentorship. So who are some of your mentors, maybe family members or coaches that you had growing up, or even people you've worked with or worked for? Who has helped you get to where you're at now at Overlake?
I think mentorship is a really important part of any job. And certainly as an athletic director starting out, I was dependent upon people who would either help me out specifically to the job of being an AD or just a little better administrator in the school. So I've had lots of them, but I think one that stood out to me was an AD who was in one of our first leagues. I was a couple of years on the job, and there's a popular name, I'm sure, on your podcast. His name's Bruce Brown. Oh, yeah. And there's a few Bruce Browns out there. I've taken some courses from the CMAA, Bruce Brown in Ohio, but this one is Bruce Brown from Proactive Coaching. And Bruce, if you're not aware of Bruce, I know you are, Jake, but Bruce has written so many great books and made all sorts of, back in the VHS days or the DVD days, So many great tools for athletic directors. And so I came across Bruce for the first time in our league. He was an AD, and I've taken so much from him that I still use. I'll use this weekend. I'm going to speak to parents at a basketball jamboree, and we're going to talk about their role. And so in Bruce's case, he taught me how to deal effectively with parents, with coaches, and really collaborated with me when I really didn't deserve it. And he was really excited. In fact, one of the first videos he does is how to be a sports parent, is shot in our auditorium. So yeah. And so he had me, I think understanding the roles of parents before, during, and after a game are really important. And I learned that from Bruce. The car ride home, he was the first person to ever kind of put it into words for me and talk about how important it is that parents understand their responsibility of not getting in between the coach and their own child when it comes to that experience. So he was a really important mentor to me, still is. He lives up here on Camano Island.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I get to send coaches up there and they spend the weekend learning how to really be a terrific coach. He's hosted teams. He's just a wonderful person. He's given so much to this sport, or I should say this field. I've had other ones. I've had heads of school that have been great. I think you really grow as a person when you actually take advice from people who are younger than you. And sooner or later, we all get to the point where there's a first boss that's younger than I am, right? And one of my first bosses, a guy named Ryan Burke, was able to kind of, I think, channel some of my frustration and teach me about how people project themselves. And I will always thank him for that. And I took things a lot less personally after that. And but I've had lots. I've had wonderful people who've always kind of looked out for me, and I couldn't thank them enough. So that's the upside of being in a community for as long as I have. The different hats I wear. I'm even a parent in this community. I still have a junior here. I have one that went through and she's in college. But some of those mentors are also wonderful role models inside our community for my own kids. So I've been lucky that way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at any of us that have been doing this for a few years, you and I are, pretty close in age, and you just look back at how people have impacted our lives and allowed us to, be in this great profession. Really appreciate you sharing that. I mentioned to our listeners that you're a CMAA. We have a lot of younger ADs that listen to us, and I think it's important for us to kind of share our journey with our state association and with the National Association, so they understand that it is a journey. You just don't, end up with, magically 25 years of experience. So share a little bit about how you got involved with your state association, which I know Washington has one of the most active state associations out there, and then also your journey with NIAAA.
I was pushed by my fellow ADs in the league to, hey, you got to go to the state conference, I think the first year. And I said, what? Okay, I'll go. And at that conference, it was terrific. And hats off to our state association, WASA. They have been innovators for so long. And even back when I was starting, they were able to get, a couple hundred ADs in a room and talk about just the meat and potatoes of the job, just how do you do, whether it's here's some technology that can help you, or here's how you deal with a particular type of coach, or, here they're so creative about the things that you could come across because they're ADs, right? Because they see it every day. And these aren't one-offs. These are the real things that happen. And so to be able to speak to your colleagues about that is a really important thing. And so as a young AD, I'll never forget, I went to one about liability, right? This is probably the first liability meeting I had, and we have a guy named Steve Bridge out here who's done it nationally too, who I've been to many, many times. But the first one I went to, they rolled literally a VHS videotape, and it was at the time the 9 duties of coaching, and it was totally low budget. Turns out it was made by a law student and a sports lawyer. and, complete with coach with the whistle. And, they'd reenact the 9 possible things at the time, 9, not 14 or however many we're going to now, but the original 9. It would be, so I'm just watching it and I'm thinking of all the scenarios that I've already seen as an AD where the kid comes up to the coach going, "Hey, I'm going to get a ride home from the game with my friends." Okay. And then they walk off and they go and they stop the whole thing. Like, this is against the law. You need to be in school transportation. So I got a couple copies of that videotape, and for a few years, until the VCR stopped working, I would play that every chance I could for all my coaches. I'm like, you will sit through this. I sat through it. I love it. This is the kind of stuff I'm into. You're going to love it. And I think we all learned, like, the coaches get everything you get at a conference, a state conference or a national conference. If you can grab some of those and put them in your coaches' trainings, you just made your school that much safer. You just made your coaches that much smarter. So I try to go to the state conference every year. National conferences, starting out as an AD, I brought an extra suitcase. There's a little pro tip for you. Brought an extra suitcase, took as many of the leadership training courses as I could. And you need the suitcase because the binders are big and you need to throw them in there. So that's exactly what I did. In that case, I remember it was San Diego, great spot for conference. Let's go back. But took as many courses as I could and got my CAA relatively quickly. And then I went to more conferences, took more classes. Now they're online. I think with the pandemic, the access has never been easier for ADs to get better at their craft and take these courses. And hats off to the national organization. The NIAAA has done so much for ADs in the last 18 months, right? To give you the opportunity to just get better at your job. And so I took the last couple online a few years back, and I got my CMAA, and I couldn't be more proud. At the time, I think it was like the 8th AD in the state of Washington that had one. I know there are a lot more since, which speaks very well of our profession.
No, and again, I really appreciate you emphasizing that journey and the impact that each individual course has. You talk about a coach. You'd go to a coaching clinic and you'd hope to come away with that one good idea. That LTI course, 4 hours, some great ADs in there. I mean, you're going to get, 9 or 10 different ideas that you can bring back and share with your staff. Really cool stuff. Okay. We are visiting with John Wiley, Certified Master Athletic Administrator and the Director of Athletics at the Overlake School in Redmond, Washington. We'll be back with some more wisdom, but let's take another quick break and hear from one of our podcast sponsors. We also want to thank our good friends at Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They are on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen boards, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments, visit vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or to learn more and get started with your own digital Wall of Fame tribute, give them a call at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. You really want to check them out. They've got some tremendous products. Okay, welcome back. John, this is the time in the podcast where we talk about best practices, trying to share some great ideas for other athletic directors. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you've done in your career, or maybe that you're doing right now at Overlake, that you're particularly proud of, and that when you step back, you can say with equal parts pride and humility, boy, we really do a great job with this. Do you have anything you can share with us?
Well, I think it's a more about where your philosophy comes from and trying to impart it on your people, right? I mean, so our job is to teach character to multi-sport athletes, a fun and positive, or in a fun and competitive environment. That's it, and I think the first value or commitment we want is literally commitment. We're in the suburbs, right? So there's 100 different club sports that kids can play, and they can double book their time, and they can do all this, and they'll come out for sports at school, and they'll say, oh, by the way, on Tuesdays, I'm, playing club soccer. And initially when we did that, coaches need to be guided to understand that it's not about, who you have on the field and what your chances are to win. It's about building your program around committed kids. And if that means you have to go up to a student and say, you know what, I'm sorry, you can't miss practice. As simple as it seems, right, Jake? You can't miss practice for an out of school activity. There are rules in our handbook about that, which have kind of changed in the last couple of years in our state, to make it a little bit more accessible for a club sport athlete to come into our programs. But every school in the state can be more restrictive. Ours is pretty straightforward. You need to make it, you're not a selective participant. You need to make a commitment, and it all starts there. So if that means one of our best soccer players isn't going to play soccer for our team, so be it. Give us the kids who are there, give us the kids who are there every day, and get them to commit and buy into your team, and you will have a successful season, as opposed to trying to coordinate, trying to get all your talent out there. I know different schools in different states work differently, but in our case, it all starts with commitment. And we just come back to that, and we do it season after season, and we work with kids. And our coaches have learned that, no, you have to come to practice every day. And you know what? That's life. That's one of the things we're teaching. I believe it's our job, right? These are the places that teach, if you're going to 5 years from now or 10 years from now, if you're going to be on a surgical team or a software team or a construction team, you need to know what is okay and what isn't. And it's our job. We feel that this is the best classroom to teach you what it's like to be a member of a team, and showing up every day, doing the work. There it is. So as simple as that is, it is at the root of everything we believe in. So that's one of the things that comes up, has for many, many, many years. And at the same time, I think we need to teach kids every day, because they don't know it. They think, in our world, they think, oh, I'm going to schedule over the top of things, and we are going to bend for them. No, we're not. And if they learn commitment to each other, commitment in relationships, commitment to a job, all those things, if that's the only thing they take from a high school sports experience, then we've done our job, right? We feel that that's a really important value. Other stuff, little best practices. I think it's really important. I'm very, very fortunate. When you go to a national conference, for example, and you sit down with a district AD, I always look at that job and I'm like, how do they do that? Right? How are they? I mean, the pyramid's big, right? I'm in charge of all these different schools with all these different athletic directors, and we believe in all this, and their handbooks are huge. And I look at it, I think, that is an administrative nightmare that I couldn't do. I have nothing but respect for those people that do it. But one of the benefits I have in my position is I'm at one school. It's a 5th grade through 12th. We only have 560 kids. There's about 320 in the high school. And my job is to connect with kids. And that's hard, right? Because if you're behind a desk, and there are people in our school that don't deal with kids, whether they're looking at ledger sheets or computer screens or whatever, their staff or their administrators, there's ways that you cannot have to work with kids. And I feel sorry for them, because I believe at the end of the day, we need to know our kids. We need to know what's happening in their lives. Kids aren't the same as they were when I started. Kids certainly aren't the same than they were 2 years ago. And it's really, really important to understand the kids at your school. So one thing I do is I keep a corner of my office, I keep a big tub of protein bars. I'm right down the hallway from the weight room, right between the gym and the weight room. You can't miss me. And now the word's out that, hey, Wiley's got protein bars, and all you have to do is say hello and can I have one? And yes, thank you. Okay. And sometimes it's just that simple. And there are kids at our school that need food, right? I mean, we all have kids. We have kids who, just because we're a private school doesn't mean we have kids that aren't on financial aid. And so they'll come in and all the kids will. Some will just take it and go. Some will say, how's your day going? And then some will sit down and basically I'll have a great conversation with them. And I'll learn a little bit about them and what their needs are in athletics or maybe home or whatever they want to talk about. But I think it's really, really important that we stay engaged with kids. And I'd give you another one. And here's another thing that I can do that district AD probably can't do. I can still coach. I think as we talk about getting to know kids, right? If you're an athletic director at a school and you have the ability to do this, find yourself a coaching job. Yes, I coached varsity basketball for 15 years, 15 of the greatest years of my life. Love it. All sorts of memories, all sorts of kids who are now in their 30s and that still talk to me. Those things are great. But now maybe I can't be a head coach anymore, but I can be a varsity girls assistant coach, and I've coached boys my whole career. So the last couple of years has been a get to know you kind of thing, right? I got a different, you really learn what girls coaches are going through, right? You get to know kids, but more than anything, you get to know exactly what your coach's day-to-day life is. And if you're going to be an athletic director, you need to know what that 2 hours is for them at the school. Do they have everything they need? Does that scoreboard have a glitch in it? You learn those kind of things. Is this really the right way to do storage? Kind of boring stuff, but the stuff that we live in too. But you get to see their world as a coach, and they might not tell you if you weren't right there coaching with them, or you might not see it yourself. So whether it's a middle school job or an assistant job, and it's also great as an AD, if a coach looks over and sees that their AD is rolling up their sleeves at 4:30 every day and running fast break drills with the kids or whatever it is, I think sends a great message that we're all in it together. I get where you're coming from. And that's really important when it comes to working with your coaches and working with your athletes.
Well, you really unloaded a lot on those best practices, but really great stuff. I loved your first theme about stressing the idea of commitment, but stressing it through practice attendance. We did the same thing at our schools, and we just said, practice is the currency that we deal with. And it doesn't matter why you're not at practice if you're not at practice. Okay. Right. Practice is important. So really love that. And, connecting with the kids, having the protein bars, great idea. I did a worse version of that. I was a York peppermint patty guy. So the kids knew they could come by my office between classes and get that little mini York. And then, again, coaching, I really love the times where I got that opportunity to maybe be a guest coach for a day or maybe a week, when somebody was out. Very cool stuff. For our listeners, John Wiley, certified master athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics at the Overlake School in Redmond, Washington. We're going to be back with some more, but let's take another quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive. You've heard me say that we have a Sideline Interactive video scoring table in our gym, and it's fantastic. We use it for volleyball and basketball games. We use it for pep rallies. We also use it for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile. It's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every single year, while also creating excitement in the gym and a great game day experience for your students. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call them at 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com and find out exactly what these fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. We're back with John Wiley from Overlake School in Redmond, Washington. Coach, one of the questions we've been asking our ADs has to do with what's been, kind of a newer topic of discussion, social emotional health. So here's my question. How can an AD or a head coach find a balance between coaching student athletes, to be tough. Back when you and I were playing, come on, you got to be tough. You got to suck it up. How can they coach toughness while also being sensitive to and aware of the very real social emotional challenges that a Generation Z kid is experiencing these days? Do you have any advice for us?
I think that the challenges that current students face are much different and much more challenging, right? The messages that our athletes get, unfortunately, are coming through their phones. And I'm telling you, for a teenager, 90% of the messaging that comes through your phone is negative. I don't measure up. I'm not fast enough. I don't look like that. All these things. I think it wears on kids a lot. It is unfortunately part of their life. And we have to try to, I think, be the people, we now have to do a different role as coaches, right? We can't just say, get on the line, run, be tough, be all this. We have to listen. We have to take time to listen to kids. What are their challenges, right? You have to, as a coach, carve out more time for team building. You have to carve out more time for kids to be able to express themselves in a safe way, right? And I would urge you, if you're not sure about how to do that, I hope you have school counselors, right? I am not an expert on anything that has to do with mental health, but I know that there are experts in your school. And so what I do is I've got some on speed dial. I've got 2 counselors in our school, and I sit down with all of those counselors and say, okay, we're coming up on a new season. Who are the kids I have to keep an eye on, and how do we do it in a way that is, I think, safe for them, but at the same time, there are kids who don't necessarily learn the same ways, right? So we also have to know the best ways to work with kids as coaches, right? So there's learning differences, and we have to support that. I think the big word is support, right? We need to find ways to support our kids. They've just gone through the toughest time, socially, emotional time in the last 100 years. And 100 years ago, they weren't reminded of it every second on their phones, of all the challenges in their life. So sports should be something that they look forward to. As a good coach of mine says, our job is to make it your favorite class of the day, a place to come back to your family. That's our team. And we need to make time for kids to be able to express themselves in safe places. And the way to do it, I think, is to get coaching. Again, mentors are important to me. My school counselor is a big mentor to us, and there are a number of ways that there are a number of things we need to watch for with kids. And you also need to know that they can't handle, like, what we may have thought of 25 years ago. They can't handle the same voice at times. And the old school coaches, if there's some old school coaches out there that are effective in social emotional stuff, hats off to you. But that stereotype has to change for most of us. We can't, I can't coach the same way that people did a quarter century ago because of, I think, how fragile some kids are in the world, unfortunately, with social media and everything else they can look at.
There's no question that old school approach, which I certainly was, one of those coaches in my career, is not the best way to do things anymore. We know more. We know more about kids, as you mentioned, the information that kids are receiving. Had a guest on recently, and he said, back in the day, in our day, if we wanted to call our buddy or our girlfriend or someone, you had to use the phone, the real phone. And usually the person that answered that phone on the other end was a parent. And so you had to go through that filter to get to, the person you wanted to talk to. And that filter doesn't exist anymore. And, he made a very similar point that we as coaches, we need to be that positive voice, that positive filter, if you will, for the kids. Very, very good stuff. Thanks for sharing that. This has been really cool connecting with you face to face, if it were, even if it is on Zoom. But we're not done yet. In just a minute, we're going to come back and John is going to give us his toolbox selections that are going to go in the AD toolbox sponsored by Athletic Surveys. So please stay with us. We'll be right back after we hear from, again, our toolbox sponsor, Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Please stay with us. You know, we also want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data about your program that allows you to evaluate and improve virtually every aspect of what you do. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack also gives you access to the 95% of the players and the parents who really love your program. And it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and look at their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the temperature of your parents and your student athletes, you really should. And please check out Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Okay, we're back with John Wiley, Certified Master Athletic Administrator. John, we've already established that you're a very experienced AD, very successful AD. But now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in John Wiley's Athletic Surveys athletic director toolbox?
Well, let me reference. Let me check. Okay. By the way, Jake, thank you for this book. Again, if 1,000 ADs haven't told you that this was the missing manual to starting the job, they should have, because it really is. I've highlighted it. I love it. I think tool 8 is that hire great people. So at the end of the day, if you have great vision for your program, that's great, but you need people to deliver on that. And until you get the right coaching staff, until you get people who share your vision, until you get the people that you want role modeling what you envision, you're still going to be digging. So what I would say is take your time hiring. It starts with your varsity heads. Find the right people. Find people who aren't using it as a stepping stone, right? Which is hard at first, right? There are people who come in and say, I want to be your head coach. We're going to build a great program. Hey, by the way, I just got a job as a college coach, that kind of thing. But find people who are you think are a great fit for your community, and you think the community is a great fit for them. And if you hire the right people, then they'll go out there every day and teach the lessons you want taught, right? So I have 16 varsity heads. Everyone, it's tricky, right? You got to have people with great experience in their sport, so as athletes, I think that's important too. What was their athletic journey? So each one of them played in college. That's not a requirement, it just happens to be. They played their sport in college, because some of your kids are going to have that as a goal. And we're fortunate enough to send a pretty good percentage of kids on to play in college. That's not our goal, but it might be their goal. It might be part of their goal. It might be part of their parents' goal. Hopefully they have their own goals, but so it's really nice to have a coach that can speak to that experience. But they also have to be able to work well with students, right? Ted Williams might have been the greatest left-handed hitter in baseball history, but he wasn't a great manager, right? He couldn't understand how other players didn't have the drive that he did about hitting, and so you need to have people that really, really are teachers of the game, but really connect, I think, make it fun for kids, but at the same time have the knowledge to be able to do skill development. So that is definitely one. Hire great people, hire great staff. I'm lucky enough to have 3 other people that are full-time. I've got a full-time middle school AD. I've got a full-time department assistant, game operations manager, who makes us all look good. And then we have an athletic trainer who's full-time. What a luxury to have a full-time athletic trainer, at a smaller school. So, all the safety boxes are checked, all the forms are right, does all the testing of our kids for concussion, all that stuff. So, but make sure they're the people you want to work with every single day, because if you hire the right staff, great things happen. So take your time, don't get rushed into anything. Don't get rushed into hiring, and please manage them. Do what you can to make them feel supported, and then get out of the way. You serve them, right? If my soccer coach or basketball coach needs something, I better get back to them real fast, because after you hire them, you manage them, you support them, and let them do their job. So, and another one, I don't know where it is in the deal, but try to figure out the captain's council or something from a student leadership perspective that works for your school. I went to so many of those conference breakout sessions. Hey, student leadership, teach your captains. We're going to do it this way. We do it that way. And it just didn't work for my school. It just didn't work for me. I tried everything. Lunchtimes. Well, people book lunchtimes all over the place at my school, different clubs or different groups. I'd miss captain. So what I did is I front loaded it. I asked the kids what works. In my case, I meet about 3 or 4 times early in the season when they're all trying to figure out what tryouts look like and all that. They have to fill out an application, right? They get selected by their coach, and he or she sends it my way. And then I meet with them directly about 4 times, and I text them every week because they like texts, right? I text them as a group. I said, who's our athlete of the week, right? They get to tell us who the athlete of the week is. They get to make those nominations. That's just a little tiny thing we do, but it's a great way for your kids to get involved in leadership. And then those first 4 meetings are all about how to work with others. So hire great people, build a captain's council, and if you have a second, see if you can coach 1 season a year.
Wow. I love that, getting that coaching angle back in there. And thank you so much for the shout out about the book. Just so you know, your toolbox suggestions will be going in the 2nd edition of the 80s Toolbox, which we hope to be publishing in the early summer of 2022. So appreciate you sharing.
Right.
John, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and pick your brain, and I really think you should, listeners, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Sure. Love to. And I can't tell you how many people I've reached out to across the country for little tips here and there. So please, if you have any interest, my email is jwiley, WILEY, at Overlake, OVERLAKE.org. So that's probably the best way. There's a ton of social media out there with us, but best way is through email.
John Wiley, Overlake School, thanks so much for sharing. I know you mentioned you're not going to make it to Denver this year because of your basketball coaching duties, but hopefully our paths will cross down the road. And thanks again for sharing today on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for the opportunity. Keep up the great work.
Oh, well, thank you, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, you too, definitely. Happy Thanksgiving to you and to our listeners. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are being uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD. And as John said, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Have a great one. And we want to thank our good friends at Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can learn more at hometownticketing.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing.